Have you ever wondered how strong your faith is when the unexpected happens, when something that seemed solid and secure suddenly collapses before your eyes? Imagine yourself in a place of peace, a refuge of prayer, where the simplicity of the environment contrasts with the immensity of the people's devotion. What would you do if, in the midst of a sacred moment, a supreme symbol of your faith fell to the ground? Get ready, because the story I'm going to tell you today is not just about an incident, but about the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit to transform chaos into glory, decline into elevation. And as we delve into this narrative, I want to make you a special invitation. Think right now about all the people, your friends, your relatives, those you know who are in need of light, comfort, a prayer. Write the names of these people in the comments right now. Yes, right here below, in the comments. We will bring together all these intentions and include them, with all our hearts, in the main prayer that we will say with the Holy Rosary at the end of this meeting. Don't put it off. Do it now and feel the strength of our community in prayer. It was a Sunday like any other in the small village of Santa Clara de Serra, one of those places forgotten on the map, where time seemed to run at its own pace, slower, more contemplative. The chapel, dedicated to Our Lady of Graces, was the beating heart of the community. It didn't have colored stained glass windows imported from Europe, nor gold-plated altars. Its walls were whitewashed, with some marks of time that told stories of generations. The smell was a comforting mix of burning incense, beeswax candles, and the old wood of the benches worn from constant use. The people who gathered there were equally simple. Farmers with hands calloused from working the land, housewives with serene and hopeful looks, children with the purity of childhood running barefoot outside before the bell rings. The faith of those people was palpable, almost rustic in its sincerity, a heritage passed down from parents to children, as vital as their daily bread. On that particular Sunday, the small chapel was more crowded than usual. Perhaps it was the cool breeze blowing from the mountains, announcing a respite from the heat, or simply the collective need to seek consolation and spiritual strength. Father Anselmo, an elderly man with a soft voice and a generous heart, began the Holy Massachusetts. His homily spoke about perseverance in faith, about how Mary, the mother of Jesus, was the ultimate example of trust in God's plans, even in the face of the greatest adversity. Beside the modest altar, on a somewhat old and slightly rickety wooden pedestal, rested the image of Our Lady of Graces. It was not a renowned work of art. It was a plaster statue, painted in bright colors that already showed some wear and tear, but for that community, it was the most tender and close representation of the Blessed Mother, a focal point of their prayers and most intimate devotions. As Father Anselmo elevated the consecrated host, in one of the most solemn moments of the Eucharist, a profound silence took over the chapel, broken only by the distant crowing of a rooster. It was then that the unthinkable happened. A dry crack, almost imperceptible at first, echoed through the nave. Seconds later, a louder creak caused some curious eyes to divert to the side of the altar. The old wooden pedestal, perhaps giving in to the weight of the years or to some invisible vibration, leaned dangerously forward. Before anyone could sketch a concrete reaction, the image of Our Lady of Graces fell, falling with a dull and desolate thud onto the red-tiled floor. The sound of the image breaking, even though muffled, was like a stab in the heart of every faithful present. A collective gasp ran through the chapel. Hands were raised to their mouths in astonishment, eyes widened in disbelief. The silence that followed was even heavier, filled with a mixture of shock, sadness, and a hint of fear. Father Anselmo, visibly shaken but maintaining his composure, momentarily interrupted the celebration. For an instant, time seemed to freeze. That image, which for decades had received the pleas, tears, and thanks of those people, now lay fragmented on the floor. For some, it could be a bad omen, a sign of difficult times. For others, it was simply the pain of seeing such a beloved and symbolic object destroyed so abruptly, almost like the loss of a loved one who held so many emotional and spiritual memories. But the faith of those simple people was forged in the adversities of rural life, accustomed to dealing with bad weather and finding solutions with the few resources available. After the initial shock, an elderly woman, Dona Benedetta, known for her fervent piety and her trembling voice during litanies, stood up with difficulty, leaning on her cane. With slow but firm steps, she approached the fragments of the image. Other faithful, as if awakened from a trance by Dona Benedetta's attitude, began to move. Seu Manol, a skilled carpenter, and some young people stepped forward carefully. There was no panic, no uncontrolled despair. There was, yes, a palpable sadness, but also a silent determination, a need to do something, to rescue what was possible of that beloved symbol. With surprising delicacy, they began to collect the pieces of the image. The head, miraculously, was almost intact, with only a small scratch on the serene face. The hands, which had previously been extended in supplication or blessing, were separated from the body, but they were also able to be recovered. The blue mantle was cracked, but the larger fragments still held their shape. Father Anselmo, watching the scene, felt a wave of emotion take hold of him. There, before his eyes, was not a community defeated by the fall of a symbol, but a community that instinctively came together to restore, to care for, to honor. Someone brought a clean white sheet from the sacristy, and on it, as if preparing an improvised reliquary, they carefully placed each fragment of the image of Our Lady. The broken image, instead of diminishing faith, seemed to have intensified devotion and a sense of unity. What happened next was the purest and most genuine expression of faith. Father Anselmo, with a choked but firm voice, resumed the Massachusetts. He explained that symbols are important, they are windows to the sacred, but true faith resides in the heart and in communion with God and with one's brothers. He invited everyone to see in those fragments not destruction, but an opportunity to renew their commitment to Mary, to understand that, just as the image was broken, our hearts are often broken by life's difficulties. But it is in union with Christ and under the protection of Our Lady that we find the strength to rise again. The fragments of the image were placed reverently on a small table next to the altar, adorned with the few wild flowers that the children had hurriedly picked from the chapel's garden. The veneration that day was even more intense, more profound. The prayers seemed to carry a new fervor, a more visceral understanding of the fragility of life and the permanence of faith. The rest of the Mass was held with touching solemnity, and at the end, instead of mourning the loss, the faithful left the chapel with strengthened hearts, commenting on how Our Lady, even broken, continued to unite and inspire her small and humble community. That incident was not the end of a devotion, but the rekindling of an even more vivid and conscious flame. This story, my brothers and sisters, although unique, resonates deeply in our daily lives, don't you think? How often do our personal statues, our plans, our certainties, our health, our relationships, seem to collapse before us, leaving us stunned and heartbroken? It is in these moments that the quality of our faith is truly tested. Like those simple believers in the countryside, we are called not to give in to despair, but to pick up the fragments, to seek unity and to find new meaning, a new way of worshipping and moving forward. This reminds us of the vital importance of daily prayer, that intimate conversation with God that strengthens and guides us. Praying for peace in our hearts, even when the world around us seems chaotic. Praying for forgiveness, both to forgive those who have hurt us and to be forgiven for our own failings. praying for more conversions, so that more hearts may open to the light of the gospel and experience the joy of faith. And above all, pray that our own faith may be constantly renewed and deepened, transforming each fall into an opportunity to draw even closer to God and His Most Holy Mother. And speaking of prayer and interceding for those we love, don't forget, if you haven't already done so, leave the names of those for whom you would like us to intercede in the comments, so that they may be included in our chain of prayer with the Holy Rosary. Your intention is precious to us. And you, what did you think of this powerful demonstration of faith and resilience by the community of Santa Clara de Serra? Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar in your community, where an unforeseen event, a difficulty, ended up becoming a blessing in disguise, a moment of deep union and spiritual strengthening? We would love to hear your opinion and your experiences on this topic. Share your reflection with us in the comments below. Your story can inspire and strengthen the faith of many who are watching. If this message touched your heart and made you reflect, don't forget to leave your like on this video, as this helps us immensely to reach more souls thirsty for the Word of God. And of course, if you are not yet part of our family here on the channel, subscribe right now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next meetings of faith, hope and stories that warm the heart. May the peace of Christ and the protective love of Mary always be with you and your entire family. Until next time.